It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in four basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation.
Everybody, welcome back to our channel. Alright, so yeah, we're going to listen to this KGB agent talk about the destruction of American political system.
How communism really kind of destroys the American political system without us knowing.
Right. They do it slowly.
It's a slow process through generations, but he's good. He's from I think he's Russian. He's an ex KGB agent, and he talks about the destruction of, it's a very long video. I think this is just a piece of it.
Yeah.
But he talks about how communists are able to go into countries and destroy it from the inside out, because you can't destroy a nation like America. It has to be disrupted from the outside, or from the inside out, not the outside in, because we're too powerful.
Yeah, and they do it group by group. So it's a very interesting conversation. But I'll put the link to the whole video below. This is a part that I thought was the most interesting of it also. Real.
Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets used the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the process which is legitimate, overt, and open. You can see it with your own eyes. All you have to do, all American mass media has to do, is to unplug their bananas from their ears, open up their eyes, and they can see it. There is no mystery. There is nothing to do with espionage. I know that espionage intelligence gathering looks more romantic. It sells more deodorants through the advertising, probably. That's why your Hollywood producers are so crazy about James Bond type of thrillers. But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion, and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in four basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information. Even if you prove that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society.
And yet these people who've been programmed and, as you say, in place and
Yes.
who are favorable to an opening with the Soviet concept, these are the very people who would be marked for extermination in this country?
Most of them, yes. Simply because the psychological shock when they will see in future what the beautiful society of equality and social justice means in practice, obviously they will revolt. They will be very unhappy, frustrated people. And the Marxist-Leninist regime does not tolerate these people. Obviously they will join the links of dissenters, dissidents. Unlike in present United States, there will be no place for dissent in future Marxist-Leninist America. Here you can get popular like Daniel Ellsberg and filthy rich like Jane Fonda for being dissident, for criticizing your Pentagon. In future, these people will be simply squashed like cockroaches. Nobody is going to pay them nothing for their beautiful, noble ideas of equality.
People like Jane Fonda were put out there to do.
Well, I mean, everything. I mean,
To push the Marxist stuff.
He's talking about generational, and there's when we talk about the ropes of society.
Yeah.
These are the and how it takes generations. I think he is saying like 3 generations of people is what creates
That's
basically
why it takes 25
socialism,
years, yeah.
then communism, and because they get into the schools, they get into the educational system, they
And
get
the
into the
churches.
government, they get into the churches, and so if you can get what he's saying is you can get younger people with this mentality of Marxism, then they become, they go into the universities and they get that ideology that's unchallenged. But when you look at a lot of things, like I know a lot of people get mad when we talk about the Black Panther, a lot of these people become useful idiots. Like, they're not that people, when you talk about Black Lives Matter, it's not that everybody that Black Lives Matter wants to be a Marxist. It's that the point of the Marxist is to get you so upset with something you might not even really be dealing with, but to get you so upset about an ideology that you take on this is happening, and then you become a useful idiot.
Yeah.
For a bigger institution that's bigger than you. You know what I mean? So when we were talking about Manny Johnson, he was saying that. He said the black people are mostly just a pawn in a game that's much bigger. So when you talk about the Black Panthers, you talk about BLM, what they're saying is that we're being played to tear up a country.
And it does work.
And it does work.
Because we're doing it now.
Right, like the BLM ladies, Patrice Cullors. She says that she, on video, that she is a trained Marxist.
Yeah.
And the guy who, I think his name's Eric Mann, he's the guy who trained her.
Yeah.
And he is a white man. And so a lot of these groups are...
Well, he said that he out of his mouth, he said that he looks for and works with only Black, Hispanic, minority groups.
Yeah, because he said white people cannot create a revolution.
Yeah.
Only what they consider the oppressed.
Let them know they're oppressed, and then they will get them mad enough.
But what he's saying is it takes generations. It's a slow process that goes over like at least 2 to 3 generations,
Which makes
where
sense.
someone starts in childhood and they start getting this Marxist idea, and then they get them into the institutions and even in churches to change the culture.
Yeah, which is what happens. Because even in the 60s, they got into the colleges and things. So a lot of those 60s people, High Kite and all that stuff, got into the colleges and they started to implement a lot of the stuff. So I feel like it does take a long time because it started even from there to even get generations of people to get to where we are right now, which we know what we're seeing now is pretty bad. So it does make sense what he's saying,
This they don't understand, and it will be greatest shock for them, of course. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. So basically America is stuck with demoralization, and unless, even if you start right now, here, this minute, you start educating new generation of Americans, it will still take you 15 to 20 years to turn the tide of ideological perception of reality.
Well, because it took that long to get us to where we are right now.
Where we are now,
So-
it's taken 60 years
Yeah.
to get hardwired. This has been going on since like the 20s.
Yeah.
I remember on the
Rockefeller,
movie,
yeah.
the documentary Uncle Tom, I think Chad O. Jackson talks about that most in the 20s, the ones they call the movers and shakers, they were, rich kids, rich white kids,
Yeah.
who were college kids,
Yeah.
who had rich parents, and they went in with this sort of socialized, sort of, they know better than everybody sort
Well,
of
just
thing.
here in America, also in China, rich college. Remember they were showing
Yeah.
the people from China. So anybody who's rich and
Right.
don't have anything to do, that's what they want.
And they come up with these
Yeah.
like ideas.
Yeah.
But this is why I was saying, this is why I worry about, I guess, too much black power and black woman and black joy, because it's manipulative in
Yeah.
a way that it makes you become prideful.
Yeah.
So prideful that you defend something ignorant.
Yeah.
That it makes you, blindsided to what it could actually be used for. And so the same thing as gay pride. Because
Yeah.
pride is a sin.
Right.
To have too much pride, this is the reason why it's a sin.
Yeah.
It's because it can blindside you and make you ignorant to facts.
And we are.
And the truth
Yeah.
is that when I said before, a lot of black people will get angry when we say things about, like we're not oppressed in this
Yeah.
country. You know what I mean? And we aren't. And black people in America are the safest and most prosperous black people in the world.
But we have black people talking about we have PTSD from slavery. Right now, in 2023, there are black people saying they have PTSD from slavery. That is
And that's
ridiculous.
just not, true.
It's not true.
You know what I mean?
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
It's just that they do use the same methods
Yeah.
to keep us in
Right.
bondage. You know what I mean? You'll never get ahead. The cops are coming after you. You know what I mean? And then they put us against each other.
Yeah.
You can see they all have. Then it's not just not the white man is bad to black people. Then it's men oppress women.
Yeah.
And then it's not just that. Straight people oppress gay people. And they have us all mad at each other. And there's just like this few people above that are playing the
puppet
politics.
masters,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? And the thing is that this is why I don't get into groups, because I realize that it is a brainwashing. And so you have to be careful of always feeling sorry for yourself and liking the pity moves.
I can't begin to tell you how many people I've talked to, even in the comment section, of with some black men, and women that are successful, in their work and their life, whatever. But they still say that the white man kept them down. I'm like, but you're successful. You just explained to me that you're making good money. You have a good family life. You're married. You're doing you're doing things, but somehow you're still saying you're oppressed. That right there is brainwashing. Because you're not. You're literally not. So it's like he's saying is that we can actually show you proof. You can actually be doing everything the right way, but still the brainwashing is making you say I'm oppressed. That's why we're always saying that there's these trigger words with black people that keeps us in line and keeps us in order. Like when slavery, white supremacy, racism. Those are words that keep us in order. And they spring them out every once in a while. When we're getting a little bit too smart. Right? And when we start saying stuff like we're not oppressed, that scares them. Because they're like, wait a minute, no, these two girls are saying they're not oppressed. They can't be. Racism. Yeah, oppression. You know what I mean? And so these are things that trigger black people.
So they
Don't
all, like
think-
he's talking about demoralization. This is why they're okay with men and women being the same,
Yeah.
and they're okay with women being promiscuous and breaking up the nuclear family. I even think we watched a thing with Elliot Hulse when he's talking about feminists, and part of their manifesto is that they want to break up the nuclear family. In fact, BLM had to take theirs down because that was in their platform, that they wanted to destroy the nuclear family. And all three of those ladies are
Right.
lesbians, which makes sense.
But also, what does that tell you is that there is, and I'll never stop saying it, there is a huge power in the nuclear family. Clearly,
Right.
there is a big power in the nuclear family that they don't want us to be a part, they don't want us to be part of, which is why they want, and none of y'all get married. So every time I hear someone say, marriage is just over, I don't want to, whenever I hear people saying that, I'm like, there's a slow process to get you to think that marriage is a bad thing, right? And so, without marriage, you don't have, if you do things the right way, you don't have the kids. You don't do it. You don't.
And it has to start with people they consider oppressed, or people who can easily be oppressed. So how do you make black people feel oppressed? You start talking about everything that happened to black people, even if you weren't oppressed, even if you weren't a slave,
Yep.
you weren't a slave, or you weren't even part of Jim Crow.
Yep.
But they will make you believe that that system is still there, and so you're fighting out on the streets for something you're probably not even dealing with on a day-to-day basis at all.
The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, it doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now.
So this is what Thomas Sowell was talking about. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Thomas Sowell was talking about this whole part. You introduce something. So they're introducing stages.
And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. He will go to Moscow to kiss the bottoms of new generation of Soviet assassins, never mind. He will create false illusions that the situation is under control. Situation is not under control. Situation is disgustingly out of control. Most of the American politicians, media, and educational system trains another generation of people who think they are living at a peacetime. False. The United States is in the state of war, undeclared total war against the basic principles and the foundations of this system. And the initiator of this war is not Comrade Andropov, of course. It's the system. However ridiculous it may sound, the world communist system or the world communist conspiracy, whether I scare some people or not, I don't give a hoot. If you are not scared by now, nothing can scare you. But you don't have to be paranoid about it. What actually happens now, that unlike myself, you have literally several years to live on unless the United States wake up. The time bomb is ticking. With every second, the disaster is coming closer and closer. Unlike myself, you will have nowhere to defect to. Unless you want to live in Antarctica with penguins This is it. This is the last country of freedom and possibility.
Okay, so what do we do? What is your recommendation to the American people?
Well, the immediate thing that comes to my mind is, of course, there must be a very strong national effort to educate people in the spirit of real patriotism, number one. Number two, to explain them the real danger of socialist, communist, whatever, welfare state, big brother government. If people will fail to grasp the impending danger of that development, nothing ever can help United States. You may kiss goodbye to your freedom, including freedoms to homosexuals, to prison inmate. All this freedom will vanish, evaporate in 5 seconds, including your precious lives. The second thing, the moment at least part of United States population is convinced that the danger is real, they have to force their government. And I'm not talking about sending letters, signing petitions, and all this beautiful, noble activity. I'm talking about forcing United States government to stop aiding communism. Because there is no other problem more burning and urgent than to stop the Soviet military-industrial complex from destroying whatever is left of the free world. And it is very easy to do. No credits, no technology, no money, no political or diplomatic recognition, and of course no such idiocy as grain deals to USSR. The Soviet people, 270 millions of Soviets, will be eternally thankful to you if you stop aiding a bunch of murderers who sit now in Kremlin and whom President Reagan respectfully calls government. They do not govern anything, least of all such complexity as the Soviet economy. So basic, two very simple, maybe too simplistic answers or solutions, but nevertheless they are the only solutions. Educate yourself, understand what's going on around you. You are not living at the time of peace. You are in a state of war, and you have precious little time to save yourself. You don't have much time, especially if you are talking about young generation. There's not much time left for convulsions to the beautiful disco music. Very soon it will go, just overnight. If we are talking about capitalists or wealthy businessmen, I think they are selling the rope on which they will hang very soon. If they don't stop, if they cannot curb their unsettled desire for profit, and if they keep on trading with the monster of the Soviet communism, they are going to hang very soon. And they will pray to be killed, but unfortunately they will be sent to Alaska probably to manage industry of slaves. It's simplistic. I know it sounds unpleasant. I know Americans don't like to listen to things which are unpleasant. But I have defected not to tell you the stories about such idiocy as microfilm, James Bond type espionage. This is garbage. You don't need any espionage anymore. I have come to talk about survival. It's a question of survival of this system. You may ask me, what is it in for me? Survival, obviously, because unlike, as I said, I am now in your boat. If we sing together, we'll sing beautifully together. There is no other place on this planet to defect to.
Him saying, we present, implement things, and you demoralize, then normalize. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of, he had these steps. And once you get done demoralizing a society, it becomes normal. So you normalize it. So what we're seeing right now is that we're normalizing obesity, we're normalizing hypersexuality, we're normalizing abortion, we're normalizing all of these things that are diminishing our society. So we're in the stage of normalization. So we're already here now, and as he was saying, that as long as it took to get us here, it's going to take us that long to get us back. And having people shout to the rooftops about communism and all these things to stay away from, and socialism and all that, which is what starts all this, I think that he is right. There's going to have to be a collective effort in our society to shun that. Because back in the day, that was not accepted in the communities. That type of attitude was not accepted. There was a such thing as shaming and stuff. You know, and they don't have that now. Now we're normal. Now this is all very normal.
Right. It's even when you talk about black wealth. You know, black people while Jim Crow was implicated. You know, we had more black businesses and black wealth than we do now.
That's true.
Because we were told in the 60s that we were being oppressed. And once we integrated, we left our businesses to go be with white businesses. And so a lot of things have been twisted around. This is why I said I think that black people have been sold a bill of goods. And they haven't really told. There's like about 40 or 50 years we never talk about it. It's like we talk about slavery. And then we jump to civil rights. And then the 50 years in between that, the civil rights and slavery, we just call that Jim Crow, and we just skip over that and not even talk about it.
Yeah.
Talk about the fact that black people
Prospered.
in the 20s and 30s, they were trying to go to white businesses anyway. Because they had, you know, Black Wall Street was not the only, Harlem. Black Wall Street was not the only prosperous area. There were a lot of black areas.
Other cities were doing what Black Wall Street was doing, just that Black Wall Street got the because of what happened.
Because of the Tulsa Oklahoma.
Yeah, because
and the
of
thing
Tulsa,
is that even Larry Elders, he was the one, he said it wasn't even called Black Wall Street until it was rebuilt.
Right.
And that's another thing. They didn't even talk about it was a rebuild. They make it look as though it was burned down.
And that was it.
And that was it. No, they rebuilt it. Now, I saw a documentary a long time ago where they talked about that. He said we rebuilt. I was like, oh, it was rebuilt. And I was like, well, then what happened? And the guy said when integrations happened, black people began to leave their businesses and go to white businesses.
Because they were allowed to now.
And they said a lot of the Jim Crow policies were falling off before civil rights came because a lot of white people didn't even like it anymore. Probably because they wanted black business. They wanted the money. Small businesses need customers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like Thomas Sowell said, economics make people come to their senses.
It does. And we didn't need. It's like there was already. See, people are. That's the part people forget. Black people were already prospering. They were very prosperous people at that point. That time it was just that it was in Jim Crow. But again, like Kara said, that even in Jim Crow we were succeeding. So that part didn't even really matter.
A lot.
Natural integration was bound to happen anyways. You see what I'm saying? So when they started doing the civil rights movement and implementing all of these leaders. These black leaders and stuff, that didn't do anything but make it worse. But to have a black person understand that,
but it makes sense.
It's very difficult.
Right, but how can you not understand that? It's like, of course, if there's segregation, black people have to survive.
The timeline's there. Yeah, the timeline's there.
I'm just saying that you would have to have black grocery stores, movie theaters. You'd have to, if you can't go to white establishments, you'd have to have black people own it. And the black people who own these bus companies, the black people who own these theaters, also have black mechanics.
Yes.
And we have black dentists, black doctors, black colleges. You know what I mean? And so the thing is that for some reason. And it's funny because I'm embarrassed to know that I didn't even put that together.
No, I didn't either.
Like, when I think about people like Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams and knowing that my whole life I really don't know them because they don't really talk about these men. You know, and Vodi Bakum.
But
Vodi Bakum's been around for a long time. How do I not know these men? And it's just because these men aren't talking like victims.
It's almost like there was a weird, if the word algorithm was even a big thing then, we would use it, right? Because it's almost like their algorithm wasn't there because other things were being pushed up. So they were being suppressed. Their voices were being suppressed to keep us dumb. That is the plain, ugly truth, is that in order to keep us feeling oppressed, we have to remain ignorant. And so we did. We remained ignorant because we weren't given the information, right?
Our families were more intact. We were more. We were moral.
Yeah, we were moral.
You know what I mean? We were more educated. We had better education when we weren't going to white schools.
There was community idea.
They said there were some schools where black grade schools were better than white ones. You know what I mean? Who knew? You know what I mean? Like you read this, it's like a whole nother world that you open yourself up to, and it does make me start to wonder. It makes me question the civil rights movement.
Yeah, which a lot of people right now are, especially particularly black people, are really starting to look at that as the civil rights movement and did it help or harm? Because that is huge. Because if you just look at the timeline of when the downfall happened, it's during that time of the civil rights movement is when we started to see things get bad. And why is that? Because the idea of the civil rights movement is to make things better, be prosper, grow, more community, being more, keeping your morals together, staying, that the idea of the civil rights movement was to do all of that. And it's very odd to me that it did the exact opposite.
It kind of upsets me because I wonder if the civil rights movement hadn't happened, with knowing that black people were outpacing white people on business levels. Our schools were even better than some white schools during the Jim Crow era. What would we be today? How many black people would be born if there were no abortion?
And again, abortion clinics are in they're primarily in every corner of a black neighborhood.
But here we got black women calling abortion health care.
They sexy up the words.
Change up the words.
Yeah,
right.
they manipulate. They use manipulation of words for movements. So when they say Black Lives Matter, that's manipulation of words. Well, because also when you just
I don't think that they've really helped us at all.
The lack of research. See, the thing is that, and I've said this before, is that when you don't do any research, you really do stay dumb. Like you stay ignorant. And I don't even mean that in a derogatory type of way. I mean that in a literal way. Like you're ignorant. You know what I mean? And I was ignorant, so I didn't know a lot of this stuff. I didn't know about these people. This man is, the fact that he is basically predicting something, and he's not a psychic. He's just seeing it.
I was watching this YouTube show once, or just on YouTube. It's just like a documentary on YouTube, and they went to all these countries that were devastated by communism. And before it all happened, it was so weird. They actually had footage of the people in the streets, like they are here. They have all these countries, China and all, and they were saying that song. And I just thought to myself, what are they saying? They were like, what are they saying? And then it said, we shall overcome. And I thought to myself, oh no. God.